Bienvenidos to another edition of the PHNX D-Backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX. This is my vice mayor, your thunderstick, Jesse Friedman. And of course...
Does this music make you feel better about what happened over the weekend?
You mean Cody Rhodes winning the WWE Championship?
No, Derek, that's not.
I feel great about that. He finished the story, baby. Let's go, Cody. Big shout out, by the way, to my guy, Cody Rhodes, and also Drew. I'm sorry. But shout out to all of you for being here. Of course, ski to you all. And welcome in to another edition of this show. We don't really want to talk about what happened this weekend. I don't think it's fair that I should have to. I don't think it's fair that I didn't go to Philadelphia. I could have been on stage during Roman Reigns' entrance playing the drums with my friend Teak and Megaran. But instead, you know what I was doing? I was here watching the Diamondbacks lose every single game. And each time it took a little piece of my soul that I don't think I'm ever going to get back. That absolutely sucked. We talked about how the Diamondbacks just winning one game would have felt like a victory, considering that they had both Tommy Henry and Ryan Nelson going in the series. We felt like, avoiding the sweep at least was encouraging. I think this hurts more than anything we could have imagined, because instead of avoiding the sweep, the Diamondbacks do get swept, and they get swept in spectacular fashion, where they had a lead or were tied in every single game, and in fact had a huge lead in two of those games, blew the games late, and ended up losing all three games in the most painful fashion that they could have.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, right? I guess the silver lining from Sunday was that they didn't lose 4 consecutive one-run games. Miguel Castro gave up a couple of runs late, which made it a 3-run loss.
No, that does not make it feel better. Nothing you said makes me feel better.
Pain. I mean, clearly eases the pain. No, these were 3 just brutal games for the Diamondbacks, and yeah, I mean, going in, we talked about expectations for the series, and given the way the pitching matchups lined up, it did not at all look favorable for the Diamondbacks. But as things turned out, Diamondbacks starting pitchers actually kind of held their own in this series. Even Ryan Nelson on Sunday, 5 innings, 3 runs. He got 16 whiffs in that game. He hung in there pretty well against Chris Sale. But at the end of the day, it was just kind of the same thing over and over again, where the D-backs, in that Saturday game, they scored 6 runs in the first inning. They were up 8-2 midway through the 4th in that game, and the Braves just keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. And the Diamondbacks bullpen obviously had a bit of a rough weekend. They continue to struggle scoring runs late in games. And on the whole, I mean, I don't think the Diamondbacks as a whole totally embarrassed themselves in Atlanta. They hung in there against a really good Braves team, without a lot of key players, which we're going to talk about in a second. All the injuries that have sort of decimated this roster in the last few days and the last few weeks, really. But yeah, I mean, just to lose these games and have these games all be as close as they were and make some of the key mistakes that the Diamondbacks made along the way, it was a rough watch for sure.
More importantly, the Diamondbacks have been the best team in baseball at scoring runs early, but cannot produce runs late. And in fact, we will get around to how good they made the bullpen here look in a second for Atlanta. And Atlanta does arguably have a very, very good bullpen. But the Diamondbacks, first in baseball when it comes to scoring runs in innings 1 through 3, in fact, have scored nearly 40 runs already, 38 runs total, which gives them number 1 overall. They also have a 1.030 OPS in those innings, which is also first in Major League Baseball. Great. What happens after that, Jesse?
It's not great. Innings 4 through 6, I guess. I mean, it's not totally terrible. The Diamondbacks have scored 15 runs to this point in the season in innings 4 through 6. That is tied for 8th in all of baseball, so not bad. They have a 764 team OPS in those middle innings, which is 7th, so not bad. And then you get to innings 7 through 9, Derek, and that's where the Diamondbacks offense has been basically useless this season. They've scored 5 runs in innings 7 through 9 this season.
5 runs?
Only the Chicago White Sox have scored fewer runs in innings 7 through 9. The Diamondbacks,
the lowly Chicago
White Sox. It's never good when you're mentioned in the same sentence as that baseball team. And a 4 and possibly even worse. I mean, actually, literally worse. A 449 OPS in innings 7 through 9. That is worse than even the Chicago White Sox.
I don't know what to say about this. I mean, what are your thoughts here? Is it a matter of some of the managing decisions that we've seen where the lineup changes late in games, or is it the dog in them, Jesse? I mean, is it the dog? Does the dog turn to a puppy late in games? I feel like there is something to be said about the fact that typically so far, we've seen comebacks. Even in the wins, we've seen teams kind of muster up some runs late and come back. It almost feels like the Diamondbacks have such a lead early that they get on their heels. And the whole team, bullpen, offense, everybody is kind of, just kind of playing a little scared instead of having that same level of confidence that they have when the game starts. I can't explain that drop-off in run production for innings 7 through 9.
Yeah, I can't really explain it either. I mean, a 1030 OPS in the first 3 innings, a 449 OPS in innings 7 through 9. We're still early enough in the season that I'm hesitant to really latch on to any of these things as being like, is this a thing, or is it just kind of what's happened in the first 10 games? Like, do the Diamondbacks actually, is there something systematically wrong with how they're approaching hitting in the later innings versus the early innings? Or is this just kind of an early season aberration that will kind of correct itself over the course of the year? At this point, we're dealing with such a small sample size that it's kind of hard to know.
Gabriel makes an excellent point there. He says, to be fair, they're facing teams with good bullpens with a lot of lefties. And
the D-backs have kind of killed like the lefty starters that they faced for the most part. I mean, what they did to Max Fried the other day, I know Chris Sale was pretty good. D-backs have kind of killed almost every lefty starter they've encountered this season.
Here's the other thing that would track the opposite direction of that is that they're getting to the starting pitcher early, right? So you would think that like the change of pitcher in a game, essentially, theoretically, they would jump all over that pitcher when they came into a game, right? So it's like hard to really, like you said, put your finger on what is wrong with this team. But we do want to take a look at the numbers from this series with the Atlanta Braves. So let's take a look at the count. And as you can see here, things kind of don't really track for the Diamondbacks, I guess.
Doesn't look like a series.
Like they swept.
It does not look like a series sweep.
Especially with the runners in scoring position. The run production here, 20 Atlanta runs to the Diamondbacks, 15 runs, 34 hits for the Braves, 26 for the Diamondbacks, a 351 batting average for the Braves with runners in scoring position. The Snakes had a 333. And then the starting pitching ERA. The Braves had a 9.22 starting pitching ERA. Jesse, if I told you that they went up against these 3 pitchers, and Spencer Strider, Max Fried, and Chris Sale, and the result was that they had a 9.22 collective ERA in these 3 starts, I think you would say, how the hell did they lose? But then a 0 point. They did not give up 1 run in the series. They did not get 1 run against the bullpen. It's so infuriating. Like you would think just out of luck that they would get a run scoring in one of those games. But of course, the starting pitching ERA for the Diamondbacks, 5.74, not great. But again, you'll take that when you have Ryan Nelson and Tommy Henry both in that series, along with Brandon Pfaadt, who has been excellent so far this season. But of course, again, didn't give him that win. The Diamondbacks relief pitching ERA, pretty terrible at 6.75, but still not enough. I think these numbers don't add up to you getting swept in a series like that. They just really don't.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so. I mean, getting outscored 20-15 in a series against arguably the best team in baseball is far from an embarrassing outcome on paper. Right. I mean, the Diamondbacks really did go in there with their 3 through 5 starters, and they really did hold their own in a lot of ways. And yet at the end of the day, all that really matters is how many games did you win? And the answer to that question is 0. The Diamondbacks didn't win any games. We've already talked about the Friday game quite a bit, right? We did our post-game show for that. That was the two big mistakes in the 9th inning that sent the game to extra innings. Diamondbacks lost that one. That was, in my mind, probably the toughest loss of the series, probably the season so far.
I don't know though. Saturday
was pretty rough too. Diamondbacks up 6-0 early, as we said. They were up 8-2 several innings later.
8 runs isn't going to be enough. Gross that you were so right. I hate that you were so right, but I hate that statement came to be true, that the Diamondbacks at one point, they didn't have, I don't think, a substantial lead. I think when I texted you that I was nervous, I think it was 8-5.
Yeah, that was point. Right after the 3-run homer against Pfaadt.
But it was insane that you're sitting here saying that a 3-run lead shouldn't be something that they should be able to hold for the next hour of time, right? Like, it's really bad. There's a lot of bad things happening. I mean, there was some mistakes. Obviously, the Jake McCarthy throwing error was
there was an unearned run in that game, and the Diamondbacks lost the game by 1 run. So you could attribute, it maybe wasn't quite as egregious as the night before, where the D-backs literally turned a win into a loss pretty much, just with those 2 defensive mishaps in the 9th inning. But yeah, in Saturday's game, Jake McCarthy had trouble getting off a throw in the 8th inning after a Ronald Acuna single. It allowed Acuna to get to second base, and he wound up scoring later in the inning, and he would not have scored on paper if McCarthy hadn't made that mistake. So yeah, you could also attribute Saturday's loss, at least in pretty significant part, to that mistake made by Jake McCarthy. And then Sunday's game, it was a 3-run loss. It doesn't feel like the D-backs were, right there necessarily in the same way that was the case with those first 2 games. But still, Blaze Alexander, there was a play in the 2nd inning. Marcell Ozuna hit an infield single. It wasn't scored an error, but it was a play that I think Geraldo Perdomo probably makes. Yes. Blaze going to his left. He did a nice job getting to the ball, but his throw took Christian Walker off the bag. Marcell Ozuna reached, and Ozuna later scored on a sacrifice fly. And again, it wasn't ruled an error, but it was a play that I think a lot of other shortstops probably make. And on paper, if that doesn't happen, then instead of it being a 3-2 Braves lead in the 8th inning, then you're tied, right? It's a 2-2 game. And at that point, the Diamondbacks probably don't go to Miguel Castro in the 8th inning. They probably go to someone else that they feel a little better about, maybe Ryan Thompson. And who knows what happens from there if that mistake isn't made. So the Diamondbacks just killed themselves with defensive miscues. There's a lot of things you can pick out in this series. The offense and needing to tack on is certainly one of them. But man, to lose with as many defensive mishaps as they did, and for Blaze Alexander to be as prominent as he was, I think I count 4 plays in 3 games that Blaze Alexander didn't make that I think you probably should make. Like that's pretty rough.
I think it's time that I say something. As founder and proprietor of the Blaze Alexander fan club, I'd like to issue the following statement. We have no comment at this time.
Okay.
All right. They've clearly felt the absence of Perdomo and Paul Sewald and the other starters. These injuries have just absolutely piled up. I mean, we talked about it in the offseason a couple of times when we talked about what are they going to do with all of this depth? What are they going to do with all these guys? This is what happens during a baseball season. It just doesn't happen like this much with this critical of personnel, like right to start the season. But other teams are absolutely experiencing this. The Braves have a devastating loss there with Spencer Strider potentially.
Yeah.
We know that there's a lot of talk about how the pitch clock factors in, how the pitch clock's getting blamed for stuff. When someone actually pointed out, no, it's the fact that we're making small children throw at 95 miles an hour when they're still small children. That's a whole other story.
Maybe it's not the pitch clock. Maybe it's that your 9-year-old is pumping like 86 in the backyard. I mean, right?
Tyler Glasnow had an interesting thing about grip and how, the way they have to grip the ball differently and gripping the different size balls, the inconsistent size of the balls is a huge problem from a pitcher perspective because sometimes you have to grip it differently, and that's how this muscle down here can potentially falter, fail, get torn, whatever the hell happens there. But right now, things aren't good. Perdomo is expected to miss some time. According to Nick Picoro, he will have surgery and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. From one perspective, at least this is early on in the season where you still have time to rebound from this and have Perdomo fully healthy for the rest of the season, which sounds like, according to Lavallo, why they decided to go that route instead of maybe just cortisone shots.
Right. At this point in the season, I mean, 4 to 6 weeks is something that you can put up with, right? And it doesn't mean it's easy. The Diamondbacks did, as we discussed the other day, putting Perdomo on the IL was going to be tough because it would require them to make a 40-man roster move in order to bring Kevin Newman up, which is what they wound up doing. So Corbin Martin has been designated for assignment,
which is infuriating to me.
D-backs have, I guess it'd be 6 more days to figure out what to do with him, whether he gets traded or if it's possible that he could clear waivers. I don't necessarily think that's totally out of the question. It's not necessarily what I expect. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, 4 to 6 weeks is, in the grand scheme of things, not all that long. But we've seen just in the last few days since Perdomo went down, the Diamondbacks haven't won a game since Geraldo Perdomo went down with injury. And that injury, I mean, in every single game the Diamondbacks have lost.
At the look on his fucking
I know Damon is getting really excited as I say this, but Perdomo, I mean, if the Diamondbacks had Perdomo, it's hard to see all of these games going the way that they did.
Oh, that's disgusting. Do you have anything to say? Do you want to say
coincidence? I think not.
No. It's only the thing that Damon's been saying this whole time, which is that Jerry P is the backbone of this team.
You don't have to believe that Perdomo is like a star level player to see the very big impact of not having him, right? Because the Diamondbacks without him are forced to have a rookie shortstop in there. Or in the case of today's game against the Rockies, they've got Kevin Newman playing shortstop and then Blaze starting at DH instead. Even that is a little tricky because Kevin Newman doesn't really have a great track record as a shortstop. He's played the position in the past. He does have some major league experience, which is, I suppose, good. But if you look at his defensive metrics, he has not generally been a very good shortstop at all.
Jesse, how many times have I yelled intangibles at you in like the last 6 months about Perdomo? Like, I've probably done it
6 months,
probably about 100 times, I'd say.
More than I care to count.
Screaming intangibles. It's the truth. It's the damn truth.
The Diamondbacks are absolutely decimated right now by injuries. In fact, let's take a look at the whole list of injuries because this is rough. At least Jordan Montgomery got his first start underway there in Reno, which we'll talk about here shortly, but Alec Thomas, of course, with the hamstring, Geraldo Perdomo with his knee, Jordan Lawler, thumb, Eduardo Rodriguez, his lat, Paul Sewald, oblique, and of course, Dre Jameson will miss the rest of the season with his elbow injury, most likely.
Yeah. Why is Jordan Montgomery listed as an OG?
Well, because he's an OG.
I appreciate you, Jesse. I put a lot of time into making a nice looking, beautiful graphic for you.
I genuinely thought you were trying to like make a statement, like, "Oh, he's an OG.
Yeah,
he's Jordan Montgomery."
Jesse just wants to point out to the whole audience, all 56 of you beautiful people watching. Here's the one mistake Damon made on this great looking graphic.
He's an offensive guard.
The rest of the graphic looks great, Damon. I just want you to know that.
No, it's cool.
It's cool.
It sucks, and I should get fired.
Just throw the whole graphic in the trash now. But of course, can you give us something to be positive about here with this team? I don't have it in me to do this, Jesse.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest positive right now is that the Diamondbacks are going to play a baseball game in about 4 hours, and they are not going to be playing the Atlanta Braves. They are going to be playing a team that is very, very, very far from the Atlanta Braves and the Colorado Rockies. We saw how that went last week.
I want to ask the question. I want to say, but what if? But I'm not going to. I'm not going to say, but what if about a series with the Rockies. I will say that at least the Diamondbacks haven't been striking out a lot, right? They have, in fact, the lowest strikeout rate at 17.4%, and they rank 11th in walk rate at 9.6%. So not terrible there. They just need to be that patient throughout the entire game and not just in innings 1 through 6.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing I'll say as far as the injuries go real quick is that a lot of these guys should be back pretty soon. If the Diamondbacks were in this position and playing the way that they were, and Alec Thomas and Geraldo Perdomo and Paul Sewald were out 3 or 4 months or something like that, you'd feel a lot different about this. Yeah. But really, I mean, Alec Thomas could be back in a few weeks, I think. Nick Piccoro said that he could start a running progression this week, which feels pretty quick coming off the hamstring injury. Eduardo Rodriguez threw a bullpen session on Friday. That was also in Piccoro's story. Paul Sewald got out to 90 feet throwing over the weekend. Another positive step in his progression back. I think it's possible that all of these guys that are hurt right now, with, of course, the exception of Dre Jameson, Jordan Lawler might take a little bit longer. You could have all of these guys back in a month and a half, which is only about a quarter of the season. And it's not to say that they're going to have zero injuries the rest of the way necessarily. That's not a reasonable expectation. But none of these injuries are super long term. And yeah, and if you get some of these guys back in a few weeks, suddenly this roster starts to look pretty darn good.
And who looked pretty darn good was Brandon Pfaadt. Set a career high with 20 whiffs the other day, and just continues to progress in a direction of him being everything we thought he could be and more. We talked about what version of Brandon Pfaadt would we see this season? Would we see that playoff version of him? And so far, it does feel like he has made significant steps forward as far as perhaps being that guy that we saw there in the postseason a bit more than what we saw in the middle of the season last year.
I mean, I know like the peripheral stats mean basically nothing at this point, so I'm not really going to read much into them. But if you go off of pretty much all of those numbers, Brandon Pfaadt has been the Diamondbacks' best starter so far. You look at the quality of contact against him, it's generally been pretty poor. Obviously, he left a pitch in a bad spot, and Marcell Ozuna hit a really big 3-run home run the other day. But I thought Pfaadt pitched a lot better than his final line would tell you. I think it was 5 runs in 5 2/3 innings. 20 whiffs is a really, really big number. Like, we only see Zach Gallen hit that number maybe a handful of times in an entire season. That's really impressive. It was a career high for Pfaadt. He had 17 in NLCS Game 3 last year, which of course was an enormous game for him when he had 9 strikeouts against the Phillies and basically retired every single hitter he faced. So yeah, I think Pfaadt has looked outstanding so far. It'll be really, really cool to see him just continue to progress throughout the season and the kind of pitcher that he can become here in year 2.
Obviously, we're also waiting for Jordan Montgomery's arrival, and we wonder what kind of pitcher he could be for this team. He did make his debut with the Reno Aces, and so far looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, there's something to be said about the fact that this is his first game against an actual opposing team, and not a bullpen, not a simulated game, not anything like that. But very encouraging, and of course, this is part of it, is him giving some kind of live real at bats and not starting out in major leagues, right?
Yeah. He pitched pretty well. 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts at elevation, of course. So welcome to the moon, Jordan Montgomery. You don't have to stay in the Pacific Coast League for too long, but enjoy your stay. I think he's pitching in Tacoma next time out, so that'll be a nice respite from some of the very, very hitter friendly environments there. But yeah, his sinker averaged 91.2 miles an hour, so his velo was down about 2 miles an hour from where it was last year. Last year he averaged 93.3. I don't think that's something to read into a whole lot at this point. As you said, it's his first start against like actual competition, and it's still a start in the minors. So maybe the adrenaline isn't quite there the same way it would be.
Get comfortable. That's the point of it, right? Is to get comfortable, actually pitch against real batters and not just, teammates or people in the organization on the back lot. And I mean, of course, the big thing here is that when Jordan Montgomery said that he will pitch on the 19th, he meant it. Because according to Nick Piccoro, his contract stipulates that.
Yeah.
He has to start for the Diamondbacks by April 19th.
I guess it just says he has to be on the active roster by April 19th. So the D-backs could they could just like bring him up, but just have him chill on the roster for however long. But that's not going to happen.
Yeah, right. Because they want him to be ready and stretched out, right? But we talked about Merrill Kelly is currently, if everything stays on the current path that it's on, Merrill Kelly would pitch on that day. So it depends on if Torrey moves Merrill out. But
I think Torrey will move Merrill out.
Yeah, but Tommy Henry is pitching
the
the next day on the 20th. So theoretically, he could also slot in there. But it would make sense to give Merrill that extra day off and to just kind of bring him in there to break up, the combo of Gallen and Merrill and have that left-handed pitcher there in the middle.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw a stat on Twitter. I'm forgetting I think it was maybe D-back stats and info. The ERA of Diamondbacks starting pitchers named Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and the ERA of the starting pitchers who are not. Of course, there's a really big discrepancy there. I think it was a 6.60 ERA for starters not named Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly. And that's very much a repeat of last season, right? When it wasn't, when you didn't have either of those guys on the mound starting, there were some long days at the ballpark for D-backs fans watching Zach Davies, watching Madison Bumgarner, watching some of the
name
young
Zach
starters.
Davies just had completely escaped my brain. I was like, oh yeah, he was a pitcher on this team last season.
He made like 14 starts for the Diamondbacks
he was our
last
ace
year
for a game or two.
Yeah, at the beginning
really
of the
was.
season, Zach Davies was the best pitcher on this team. But yeah, and that's just not something we expect to continue, right?
Yeah.
You're just not going to have an ERA over 6 from the non-Zach Merrill starts the rest of the way, because theoretically, if all goes well in a few weeks, you're going to get Eduardo Rodriguez back. You're going to get Jordan Montgomery back. Brandon Pfaadt is actually pitching quite well, despite what his ERA might tell you at this point. I think he's looked pretty darn good in his first couple of starts this season. This rotation still has the makings of being one of the best in baseball. Yep. There's really no evidence to believe otherwise right now. And that's why at the end of the day, Derek, I'm really not that concerned with anything that I've seen over the last few days. D-backs have lost 4 in a row. It's been a rough stretch. You would have liked to at least get one of those games in Atlanta. The fashion in which they lost, I think, was really tough for people to swallow. But at the end of the day, I mean, this team is second in baseball in runs scored.
Yeah.
They have a 778 team OPS, which, yes, it's weird how that is, way better in the first few innings than the last few innings. We're still trying to figure out why that is. But a 778 team OPS is still very good. The Diamondbacks have hit well. Their pitching, by and large, has actually been pretty good. They have a team ERA of 3.90, which is pretty solid. Their bullpen ERA, even, this might be surprising to people, they have a bullpen ERA of 3.55.
3.55. Well, I think part of it is the extra inning runs with the ghost runners are unearned, right?
Those are unearned, yeah.
Even though you think about a lot of runs that they've given up, a lot of them have been unearned runs, and also due to the mistakes, they are unearned runs. So that's not, it's not that surprising if you've actually been watching this team. But you do feel like the bullpen takes on much more of the responsibility here for some of these losses. The bullpen has not been great. Like many of you said, Miguel Castro has just flat out stunk.
There are certain guys that, it's been pretty much all
he doesn't
bad,
feel he's not going to be comfortable singling him out. I'm fucking singling people out because our dog Ryan Thompson ain't one of them. In fact,
Ryan Thompson has been exceptional. I mean, I just am having a hard time fathoming, Derek, how the Diamondbacks picked this guy up
from the Rays just
after
because
he was released last year.
Just two bad games.
I mean, it's not just that he pitched well in the postseason. He gave up 1 run in 13 innings down the stretch last year, and he's come back this season and has given up a couple of hits in his 5 innings. He hasn't given up a run yet. It's been real. I mean, Ryan Thompson is not going to have a 0.6 ERA for his entire Diamondbacks career. I don't think, but I'm not totally sure, Derek, because he just keeps doing this, and it has been pretty remarkable to watch.
I can't wait to see him so that we can talk about Cody winning the championship last night.
I'm
I have
sure,
so much to talk to you about.
I'll dip out.
That is absolute. Jesse's just going to peace out when we do have that conversation.
I feel like with this team, essentially everything has gone wrong to start this season. Yeah. And with the record that they have. When we were looking at by the numbers for the Yankees series and they were better in every single statistic and they lost that series, or against the Braves when they're it's pretty evenly matched up and then they got swept. Whether it's injuries or Torrey making bad managerial decisions at times or just whatever, we're losing on the margins and we're so close to having a really, really good record, and that's why it just hurts because it feels like we could be one of the best teams in baseball record wise right now.
One of the things this team did last April so well was playing flawless baseball, and they are absolutely not playing flawless baseball right now. And when they were playing flawless baseball, it could make up for some of their shortcomings, like the bullpen not being as good as it ended up being by the end of the season and things like that. However, it catches up on you because if you need to play flawless baseball in order to win baseball games, the minute you start playing like this, you are losing those close games. You are making those mistakes late. You are letting the other team gain that momentum. Momentum's a real thing in baseball. It's a confidence thing. And when you start realizing you got the opposing team on their heels and you as the opposing team, even with a lead, start feeling like you are backpedaling and you are on your heels, then it might already be too late. So this team needs to get some of that confidence back. Again, there are people that are missing from this team that gave them that, including Evan Longoria and including Tommy Pham, who Tommy Pham is the kind of guy who's going to say a bunch of 4-letter words at you in the dugout to get you to realize that you are still the same player you were in the 9th inning that you were in the 1st inning. That's something right now that the Diamondbacks really need to realize about themselves. They are incredible in the 1st inning, and there's no reason why they can't be just as incredible throughout the game. They just seemingly are taking their gas off or foot off the pedal, and it's yielding the results we're seeing, right?
And not only that, but the defense has been horrific to start the season.
Really
and we have the D-backs have had a good defense almost every year under Torey Lovullo and his entire managerial tenure, which has been a long time.
Yeah.
So it's pretty shocking to see.
It's not just defense, but it's base running
and base
too,
running
right?
as well.
They've made a
Rookie
lot
mistakes.
of that Yankees series, we saw them lose possibly a couple of games because of defensive mistakes that they made. So yeah, it's been uncharacteristic mistakes, which they absolutely have to clean up. Personnel is part of it. Not having Geraldo Perdomo, as we've certainly felt the effects of that. Not having Paul Sewald, you've certainly felt the effects of that as well. Not having Erod and Jordan Montgomery in the rotation, you felt the effects of that as well. But at the end of the day, the D-backs have scored a whole lot of runs this year. I mean, their pitching by and large has been actually pretty good. These last few days have been rough, but this doesn't look like a baseball team to me that is, not living up to the hype in the sense of on the verge of really having a rough season or anything like that. It's not, at least right now from what we've seen, I just don't really get that sense watching this team.
I understand how it's doom and gloom for some people, but let's keep it positive and let's see how you feel after they play the Rockies, perhaps. So we got that coming up. Of course, we do thank all of you for being here right now on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Of course, if you're here, smash that like button. Gabby, I don't know if you want to smash the like button.
No, smash it.
Gabby's performance
to make him better at baseball.
Yeah, well, it's like this. It's like the applause thing that they did last season. Well, let's do that. Let's give him some likes here, and let's hope that this team could get things back on track. Specifically, the fact that they're so close without guys like Gabby and Corbin Carroll not performing at what we know that they could be, how they could be performing. But of course, subscribe to the channel, sign up for notifications, do all that stuff, drop a like. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you're subscribed there. Leave us a review. We always appreciate those reviews. Those 5-star reviews definitely help us out a ton. Of course, a great way to make baseball more fun, and including the basketball tournament going on. All ends tonight. Get down on the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Get down on those UConn or Purdue bets. Of course, right now, if you do sign up and use our bonus code of PHNX, you can get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. Should your bet lose, excuse me. Let me try to use correct verbiage here, because I know Elise will be on me about that, but
she will
sign up and
so
deposit.
Yeah, me and Elise both play that role.
He waits
here.
Though he just gets me after the show. But of course, sign up right now and deposit at least $10 into your BetMGM Sportsbook account. Place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. If the bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Again, sign up for BetMGM and use that bonus code of PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the Sportsbook mobile app for at least $10. You will receive $1,500 in bonus bets if the bet loses. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Bonus bets expire in 7 days. One new customer offer only. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus only. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Bonus bets are non-withdrawable. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, North Carolina, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
I could use a trip to Puerto Rico right about now. But, of course, a good facsimile of that right here in town is Gila River Resorts and Casinos. And it might be even better because, again, like I've told you before, I hate traveling.
It is better.
It is better. It's absolutely better. And, of course, nobody does it better than Gila River Resorts and Casinos. They offer an authentic and immersive experience. And, of course, you can check out, if you got tickets to the big draft party for the NFL guys, of course, it is sold out, just like our pool party. So these events, they're becoming a hot ticket. So make sure to get it when you can. But right now, of course, you can still visit Gila River Resorts and Casinos and check out their unprecedented level of entertainment and excitement that you won't find anywhere else. Head to Gila River Resorts and Casinos and let them show you what next level is all about. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. All right. Well, of course, even though it doesn't really feel like it right now, every year is still our year. Every year is the year of the snake. Every month on this show is Black History Month. Every month on this show is Women's History Month. And of course, every month is Black Women's History Month. Every week is Shark Week. Every day, Earth Day.
Every day there is a total solar eclipse.
There is
on
a
the
total
PHNX
solar
podcast.
eclipse
Yeah.
every single day on this show. It's sometimes in my heart. But of course, on Mondays are special. You know what we do. We go to the mailbag. Damon, shall we?
My mailbox, always something interesting in my mailbox. I try to get to everything in my mailbox. And then once in a while, there's a letter that makes me go, wow, wow, my mailbox.
Still can't believe that son of a bitch was on stage for Roman Reigns' entrance. Monster. He just I should have been in Philadelphia. Anyway, what do we got, Damon? First set of questions we got is from Travis Moore. More for me on Twitter.
Can I just say that Travis has like a Cal Ripken Iron Man streak of being the first mailbag question going right now. Like, there's no doubt in my mind he's been like the last 10 mailbag question
MVP
number one.
Question asker, MVP.
It sounds like it.
Known good question asker, Travis Moore. He says, how long do we wait before we can be legitimately concerned about Corbin's performance this season? Hopefully we don't. I feel like we are to a point where we've seen at least some encouraging at bats, but it is frustrating. It's frustrating to watch him struggle the way he has, and I don't know really what the answer to that is right now. I mean, there's some progress that's being made, but the results really aren't there right now.
So I have a stat to present that I don't think is going to make you very happy, but
oh no,
what else is new? We do this every day. So Corbin Carroll, since June 15th of last year, I believe this includes the playoffs, he is hitting 263, 340, 424. It's a 764 OPS. And that's not a very small sample size. That is nearly 500 plate appearances in which Corbin Carroll has a 764 OPS. And June 15th, of course, there's a reason that this timeline starts there. That is when, I believe, when the first Corbin Carroll shoulder incident happened, or at least right around there. There's, I think, a reasonable question to be asked about whether that whole situation has impacted Corbin Carroll's power in any sense. He's still gotten on base pretty well in the playoffs. He still got on base a ton. He's still done some very good things in that span of time, but we haven't seen the power that we saw in the first half of last season. So I'm not necessarily inclined to think that there is, a huge thing happening here with Corbin Carroll. I still think it's so early in the season to be making any kind of big judgments. But I will say that this is a trend that has gone on for a while now, where Corbin's power has just not really been there. And of course, with what we've seen so far this year, it's not just the power that hasn't been there. It's that he just hasn't really made good contact with much of anything.
I will jump this table right now, Jesse. How dare you come after sweet Corbin?
So, like, according to Jesse Friedman, Corbin Carroll is washed. That's what I just heard.
A 764 OPS is not bad. If Corbin Carroll had a 764 OPS over a full season, being as good of a base runner as he is, he would still be a very valuable player. So this is not to say that Corbin Carroll is like, oh, maybe he's not even a good baseball player. This is to say, at least from what we've seen over these last 6 months, or I guess this would be, June was 10 months ago now, but about 6 months of like actual games being played. In his last 6 months of actual games being played, he has not been the MVP caliber player that we saw at the beginning of last year.
So let me ask you this. If it was an impact of Shouldergate.
Nice.
Is this, in your opinion, due to perhaps a change of mechanics due to that? Or is this due to a persistent injury or a way that he's feeling where he's not right and there might be something actually wrong with his shoulder?
I don't think there's something wrong with his shoulder, but I wonder about the mental impact of feeling what he felt and thinking that his season was over and then having another incident very similar shortly thereafter, right? And And he's also been kind of alternating between a two-handed follow-through and a one-handed follow-through.
Seems like it's more natural, but he also did that before that incident, before that injury. He did have times where he had a two-handed follow-through and a one-handed follow-through. There was video that was broken down that showed that wasn't necessarily something he exclusively did, but maybe it's something that the frequency picked up more on the two-handed swing after that due to, like you said, due to the mental aspect of just thinking about potentially injuring yourself again. So
right.
I don't know. I think that is a valid amount of time to pull. I think that we will see Corbin Carroll, based on the average there, be better than he's been early this season. But of course, there is a lot to be said about, everything that goes on with a baseball player in their second season and how much information is available on them, how people are playing it differently. Of course, Corbin's still going to be a huge asset to this team. We just hope that he can get things back right here soon.
I really don't have any questions about Corbin breaking out of this current slump that he's in. For me, it's just a question of how high is the ceiling for him this year? I mean, can he go out and be a top 5 MVP caliber player yet again? I think he's going to be a good player no matter what. It's just a question of kind of how high that ceiling is this year.
All right, what else we got? Next question comes from our guy Cogs, a.k.a. Matthew. Cogs says, do you think the D-backs...
Doxing him.
Wait, yeah, Cogs' name is Matthew? What?
Dog. This was news to me, but of course I do have to dox him. Cogs says, do you think the D-backs bring up fresh arms from Reno before our next homestand? If so, how many and who? I don't know. I don't think that that's really feasible right now with the kind of logjam that they have, but I also think that the Diamondbacks have proven so far over the last 12 months that if you're not pulling weight, they will cut you. They will move on from you. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see a drastic move here, but the Diamondbacks are limited on arms for the time being. So I'm leaning towards being doubtful that we see that before the next homestand.
I mean, the last couple games, you got 5 2/3 from Pfaadt on Saturday. You got 5 from Ryan Nelson yesterday. You've got Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly pitching in these first 2 games in Colorado. So I don't think that from a workload standpoint, the Diamondbacks are in deep trouble or anything like that necessarily, given the fact that you have Gallen and Kelly starting off this series against the Rockies. I'm inclined to think the D-backs are going to be able to get by without having to dip into their pitching depth in Reno in order to pick up any additional arms. So it could happen if they did add an arm from Reno. I imagine that Andrew Saalfrank or Justin Martinez would probably be the first man called up, given what they have down there right now. But I think they're probably going to be okay. They also have an off day on Thursday, which should help them out going into that Cardinals series.
At some point, we're going to need to talk about how good Cristian Mena has been for this team in Reno, because he has been pitching very, very good down there. So, of course, we'll get to that soon. But what else we got here, Damon? Next question comes from our guy, Sleep at the Wheel, Jeff Bunch of Numbers. And Jeff asks, if the bullpen was bad last year, why has nothing been done to change it? I mean, I guess you could blame a little bit the fact that once they traded for Sewald, everybody was pretty good. You could blame the fact that they picked up Ryan Thompson, and that Ryan Thompson was excellent for this team down the stretch, as Jesse said earlier. Even Andrew Saalfrank, also excellent for this team. They kind of got themselves in a position where the bullpen had righted the ship, and a lot of those pieces, like Sewald's not available right now due to injury. Obviously, we're missing, Saalfrank. They sent him down. I think they thought they were in a better position and had other areas to address, to be quite frank. I think they also have a plan maybe here with, some of these with Ryan Nelson or Tommy Henry, where they might see those guys as bullpen pieces potentially. But right now they need them in the starting rotation. So that might answer it, but it was also a question this guy had been asking the entire offseason. When are they going to address the bullpen? Because it didn't really feel like it was sustainable based on what we saw from them last year.
Right. Yeah, I don't really think it's fair to say the Diamondbacks bullpen was bad last year. It was bad in the first half, It was bad pre-Paul Sewald, but then after Paul Sewald, it was very, very good. But to your point, I don't really think that was sustainable. And you almost wonder if in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't great that the bullpen was as good as it was down the stretch, because maybe it did cause the Diamondbacks to rest on their laurels a little bit too much.
Like they didn't need to
be like, oh, we got Thompson, Ginkel, and Sewald. I mean, it's the best 7, 8, 9 trio in baseball over the last couple months, right? Why would we add anything to that? I, as you said, did feel over the offseason that adding something there would make sense. But it looks a lot different once Sewald comes back. So I still am not ready to say that this bullpen is terrible. We also talked about earlier how they have a 3.55 ERA as a unit this season, which is not bad at all. They've been at their worst, I think, in the biggest of moments, which is not a great thing.
Kind of what the problem is.
That's kind of been what the problem is
with the whole team too, with the hitting as well, and with the base running, and like I'm telling you, it's
the dog in them.
It's the margins. Well, they're missing that. They're missing the alpha dog.
They're missing the big dog. Yeah,
Jerry
P. Of course, we all know that. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Kidnap82. I don't know if I should be saying that name, but Kidnap, thank you for your nice comment. He said the Mayor and Thunderstick are the real MVPs. We always appreciate you guys dropping stuff like that for us. But of course, we got another question. Then we got some ads to read. What else we got, Damon? Last question for now comes from Brighton Bobbitt. And Brighton asks, despite the sweep, do we feel decent about the D-backs keeping the Braves honest and in a way should have probably won 2 of 3? Yes. The way they performed, especially against starting pitching, was extremely encouraging and just goes to show what this team is capable of. I don't know what the hell happened late in these games. I can't explain that. Yeah, I do think a lot of it, to be fair, honestly, is the inexperience of someone like Blaze Alexander. It is, some mistakes that got compounded by some bad pitching. The mistakes kept the inning from ending, and then the bad pitching allowed things to really unravel. It was just a combination of things, but really, it did truly feel like it's the most loser talk at times ever to say they should have won 2 out of 3. But they really should have won 2 out of 3. And as far as the silver lining goes, it is very encouraging that not only should they have won, but that they were up so significantly in 2 of those 3 games. And then, what happened happens. It's still the Braves. You gotta keep the Braves honest, not just in innings 1 and 2, but you got to keep them honest the entire game. That's why they're such a good baseball team.
Yeah, I mean the fact that the Diamondbacks got as close as they did in these games. I mean, that's kind of why it's so hard to swallow, right?
Yeah,
is that
that's what's upsetting about it. Yeah, they kicked their ass. It's like, okay, the Braves are better, right? It doesn't feel like the Braves are better. It felt like the Diamondbacks gave up these games, including Sunday's game. I mean, it really did. They were tied 2-2 at one point, right?
I mean, you put 6 runs on Max Fried in the first inning. Like, you got to feel, and then they eventually did get to him a little bit later in that start as well. So yeah, I mean, I think the Diamondbacks absolutely held their own in this series. And going back to what I said in our first segment, I'm not really all that concerned about what I've seen so far, given how well Ketel Marte looks, given how good Lourdes Gurriel looks, given Eugenio Suarez, Jock Peterson. There's enough players on this team that are doing exactly what you would want them to, that it's way too early to be sounding any alarm bells right now.
Growing pains. They still need to come together and figure some things out. And of course, again, I think it illustrates how good Perdomo really is and how much they've missed him because of the frequency of mistakes that have been made just at shortstop so far. Just shows it's like what we've said about Christian Walker. You don't even know what Christian Walker does over there at first base until he's not there. And then when he's not there, you're like, Christian would have gotten that. Like, wait, you couldn't get that grounder? You couldn't pick that one out of the dirt? You couldn't do this? You couldn't do that? Walker makes it look so effortless over there at times that it's just easy to forget how truly good he is and how hard it is to play even first base in a professional baseball game.
I just want to throw out there that Jerry is younger than Blaze. Like, we need to think about that for a second. I know we talk about him like he's like this like long tenured veteran though, and he's still 24 years old.
Sure.
And that's just the type of player he is. That's why I gravitate towards him, because he's so good at that stuff at such a young age. And I think it bears noting.
Even going back to last year, right? He was splitting time with Nick Ahmed, who has been incredibly good this year defensively himself.
Defensively,
right?
Yeah.
But again, the idea there, I like that he did that. The idea there is that, he was going to split time with Nick last year because just last year he was seen as being too young to handle the position full time and to be their everyday regular starting shortstop. And he proved he could handle it. He really did. Nicholas says Perdomo to the D-backs is like Charlie to the waitress and Always Sunny. You don't realize the little things he does until he goes away and now your life sucks. I love that episode. What a reference. And I don't know if anybody else got it, Nicholas, but you and me are right there. That's a great point. I'm going to make Jesse watch the episode of that show just so he gets that reference. But of course, we thank you guys. We thank those of you that are diehards like Nicholas. Of course, if you aren't a diehard, consider getting one, because if you do, you can join us for our D-backs takeover coming up here in just about 1 month. On May 9th against the Padres is our first takeover at Chase Field. Get your tickets now. You can click the link in the show description. Of course, if you are a diehard, you will get a discount on that event. You also get so much more, including a diehard membership card, free t-shirt of your choice from the PHNX locker, access to all of our premium written content, and of course, access to the Discord Lounge, which is the best place to be an Arizona sports fan. Discounts on all of our events and discounts with our partners. So make sure to sign up today and become part of our family. Of course, great way to go see baseball games when you're not doing takeovers with us is getting your tickets through Game Time. Game Time is all about baseball this time of year. They're making it that much easier on you to get the tickets with a discount code of First Pitch, $20 off from now until April 14th. Of course, Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for concerts, sports, comedy shows, all sorts of stuff. I love comedy shows myself. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. For a limited time right now, all users can get that $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Game Time app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms do apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH, all one word, for $20 off from now until April 14th only. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. A great place to get over a sweep like we saw this weekend, of course, is at Illegal Pete's. You will find Damon there. I
was drinking my sorrows away.
He was drinking the strongest margaritas in Arizona. He had all of his Geraldo Perdomo baseball cards with him. And of course, it's a great place to hang
up on
out.
the table.
Oh, man. It's like, look, we're not going to, it's going to get hot fast. And I know Illegal Pete's has misters and their patio is always a great time. But of course, now is the time to take in this beautiful weather that we have here in Arizona. And patio season means patio beers, of course, at Illegal Pete's. Of course, check out their full menu, their full bar, and don't miss out. Reverse nachos, piping hot queso. It's all great. Illegal Pete's is also here to bring you a win with their legendary sound check deal. Bring in your ticket stub from any ticketed event and get a draft beer or house margarita for just a penny. Illegal Pete's wants to celebrate with you, whether it's pregame or postgame party. They got you covered on all your game day needs. Must purchase an adult entree to redeem Illegal Pete's sound check deal. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. And Damon. Of course, we got some more Mailbag Monday questions. And we know what, like I said, we know what today is. It's Mailbag Monday, but it's also a solar eclipse. Or what is it? What do they say? Totality? When is eclipse totality occurring? It happened at a baseball field. We have questions about the solar eclipse. Let's get to it. Damon, what do we got? First question comes from a very big gunner, a D-backs UK Western. Says, if Corbin Carroll hits a home run in a solar eclipse, is it called a sunshot or a moonshot?
Yeah, well, I mean, scientifically, there's nothing about a solar eclipse that would cause a dinger that traveled to the moon to go to the sun. It's just not. At least, I mean, I'm no astronomist, Eric, so I don't have the credentials for this kind of thing. But that's at least my understanding of the situation. Maybe we call it a shadow shot, given the events of
I like that.
eclipse with the
it could be new. That's new. I like it. I'm not against that. I don't know. It's not Napo Bapo. Moonshot just seems very apropos. Like we have a thing already called a moonshot, and you want to just come up with a new term. That's crazy to me. But I don't know. I guess we'll go with your stupid idea.
Okay.
Yeah. What else we got? Well, let's take a look. Right now, by the way, we got some great pictures of the eclipse. Look at this. This is actually what Cleveland looks like right now, or not? No, it did a little like at 2 p.m. Eastern time, around like 11 a.m. our time. This is actually what it looked like. This was in the path of the eclipse totality.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Crazy.
Right lingo.
Yeah, we tried to go outside and look. It was not this exciting.
Yeah, it did not look like this in Phoenix, Arizona. This game was kind of unique. Guardians, White Sox, I believe it starts at 2:15 Eastern time. Or 2:15 Arizona time, which is just a few hours after totality. So I believe this is the only game today where like gates were actually open and fans had the opportunity to take in the eclipse from inside of a ballpark. What I'm really disappointed by, Derek, is that Major League Baseball didn't schedule a game during the eclipse, because that would have been electric. Can you imagine like the lights are on already, and it gets, and you're playing like a day game and a night game, like all in one?
Yeah, that would have been electric. That would have absolutely been electric. Also, the path of totality, that's electric. That needs to be like a team that dominated, its opposition for a season. It's path of totality.
Oh, there you go.
Or like maybe a WWE pay-per-view. I don't know. PLE? No, they're not called pay-per-views anymore. All right, what else we got, Damon? We got more solar eclipse questions. Michael Rokicki asked, which D-backs player is most likely to look at a solar eclipse? Oh, don't do this to us. I mean, this is, I don't know how to take this question, but I feel like it's like whoever we say is a shot. And it's obviously Blaze Alexander, right?
I think just based on what we were hearing about his personality in his first few days in the majors, he could, a Blaze moment, like a situation where like he just doesn't, something just kind of goes over his head. He just doesn't quite get it. Maybe that's something that he wouldn't quite get, that you're not supposed to stare directly at the sun. Even in the event of a solar eclipse. So
I feel like Alec Thomas would do it just because you told him not to.
I think Alec Thomas would look at it, but he would have the glasses because he would think they looked cool and they were like part of his fashion statement for that particular day. Yeah. Right.
Meanwhile, Corbin couldn't be bothered with it. He couldn't care if there's an eclipse or not. He'll just know if does this impact my training.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Anybody else? I don't know. Gino? No, I don't know.
You think Gino would look? You think Gino would stare at the sun?
It's definitely Blaze. It's Blaze, and Brian's right. Defo Blaze. He has golden retriever energy. That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what he does have. Big GR energy from Blaze. All right, what else we got, Damon? Next question comes from Bold as Bronze, and Gabriel says, if you had to predict which current players are going to give a speech in Cooperstown in 20 years, who would they be? Read the room, Gabriel. We just got swept by the Braves. What are we doing here? All right. I'm not in the mood to talk about which of these players are going to be future Hall of Famers, Jesse.
I mean, in fairness, I think Gabriel's asking about like baseball, major leaguers at large, not just Diamondbacks players. In which case, it is a very interesting question. It's a question that's
a whole episode.
Pretty impossible to answer. Yeah. I guess you're just thinking of players who are very young now that you feel, as good as you can feel about getting to the Hall of Fame as you could imagine for someone who's, in his early 20s or whatever. Bobby Witt Jr. is someone who I think is going to be a very, very good baseball player for a long time. Is he going to make the Hall of Fame? That's sort of a crazy thing to be making claims about at this point, but I could see it. I could see Bobby Witt being a Hall of Famer. I could see Julio Rodriguez being a Hall of Famer.
Don't do this. This is too wide open. He's going to go on for 30 minutes with this. Do you know how many players you could say are going to maybe be Hall of Famers?
No, but there really aren't that many.
Can we at least condense it down to Diamondbacks? Are there any future Hall of Famers on the Diamondbacks? Is there any potential
that
there?
Almost feels too narrow. Like, how many future Hall of Famers does any one team have at a given time?
Sure.
Maybe one, right? Yeah. For the Diamondbacks, I guess Corbin Carroll would be the easiest answer at this point.
Right? Yeah. Zach Gallen seems like potentially could be, you could see that. I like Solario.
He'd probably be making a speech sooner than 20 years, because 20 years would mean that his last season was 15 years from now. I don't know if Gallen has 15 more seasons in him.
Okay.
He would be like 43 years old at that point.
So they have to be a first ballot Hall of Famer is what you're saying.
I guess
right?
I guess that's a good point.
Okay.
That's a good point.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not always a first year thing. But yeah, Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez, Adley Rutschman's another guy. Like, wouldn't surprise me at all if Adley Rutschman was a Hall of Famer someday.
What about actual legends right now? What about like you're
I'll tell you who won't be.
You're going with the far off like young guys.
Wait, Damon wants to tell us why
Mike
James
Trout?
Outman won't be a Hall of Famer.
Wow. Okay. First off, that guy didn't even cross my mind because that's the most. We're giving Hall of Fame busts to like mid players. Yeah, that's insane. To 8th hitters in their lineup, Jesse. That's nuts. I was just gonna say that once we get Ohtani locked up in federal prison, we know he won't be making the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Pete Rose and Ohtani, man. It's gonna be a fun little group we got there. Just crickets.
Yeah, I don't really have anything.
Two guys who are too scared to put their faces on that.
Yeah. Anyway,
not this guy. This guy. I'm ready to throw it all out on the table.
Do we go for next question, please?
Yeah. Can I get a next question, please, Damon?
Hey, it's Maria. Hey, Maria, our favorite Dodgers fan.
She came just in time for that take.
Yeah, that was a good one. All right, what else we got? Last question comes from Ryan Hanley, and he said, "What is your impression of WrestleMania?" Yes, Jesse.
Doesn't this have to have like a baseball spin on it? Like we can't just have people submitting mailbag questions that aren't anything about baseball whatsoever, right?
You can actually leave the room if you want to.
It's time to clock out.
I'm tempted to do that.
Someone actually specifically wanted to know what your impression of WrestleMania was. Now,
I don't have anything to say because I didn't.
You don't have to say anything else. What is your impression of WrestleMania as a whole, as a thing that exists? What is your hot take on my favorite thing? Go.
It sucks, Derek, and it's a waste of your time. I mean, I like Philadelphia. Like if it was, I mean, a lot of cool things happen in Philadelphia in my mind. Yeah, so if it was there, I mean, it sounds like an okay time. I guess
it was a great time. But let me tell you,
how would you know? You weren't there. You were watching the Diamondbacks get swept by the Braves.
I was getting updates from Mega Ran all the time. The cheesesteaks were great. The weather, not so much. But of course,
probably not.
My impression of WrestleMania is that I think that they gave the fans just the experience that they were looking for. I thought it was a well-done event. Like it's this huge event. They've moved it now to being 2 nights. They've really taken advantage of it. Everything went really well. All of their events went really well. Everybody had really positive things to say about it. And that's hard considering the size of those events. I mean, we're talking about, Jesse, a combined attendance of over 145,000 people over those 2 days at Lincoln, at the Lincoln Financial Field or whatever.
They really didn't have something better to do with their time.
Oh man. And see, here's the thing is I'll even agree to this, that there are some people that like were sitting so far away that like even the screen to watch the matches on was tiny and small.
What's
the
point?
People love it. You love it. It's a rare thing. Not everybody gets to go. It's like a Super Bowl in a way where you don't really care about the teams because it's neither of your teams on the field, but you just went to go because it's an experience. It's a thing. For me, my birthday is March 24th. And so as a small child, I was under the impression that WWF was putting on this big event for me in honor of my birthday every year. Aww. Because I always got to watch it. I was like, that was like we'll pay money to get it this time because it's always around your birthday, right? So of course I have very good memories tied to it. But I think this one, the thing that was different is the WWE ultimately has, these, which blew your mind. I know the outcomes are predetermined, right?
Yeah.
It was crazy to Jesse when he found out the outcome was predetermined. But like they have an opportunity a lot of times to make fans happy. And instead they try to like do things to like make the situation a little bit more complicated or do something, maybe like prey on your emotions and maybe make you leave angry so that you're willing to watch the show the next night to see if your guy that you were, rooting for can come back and overcome what happened to them or whatever, right? And instead, it just leaves people angry is really what it does. It makes people turn it off and it makes people stop watching. They had an opportunity to make a lot of people happy. They did. It was fun. And right now it's being ran by the same group that owns UFC. And it just feels very different. It felt like they did a great job of, honoring everything that was going on, putting on a great show. And they had some great moments. Sami Zayn winning the Intercontinental Championship, personal favorite moment of mine. Cody Rhodes, obviously. finally finishing his story. These are just some long-term storytelling things that they've done that it was really gratifying as a fan, much like when you watch, a movie and it's long, but you get to the ending and you very much enjoy it. This was a proper ending for a lot of these things that people have invested their time in watching, even though you think that's a waste of time.
I do.
Understandably so.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, don't fucking watch Lost. Don't ever waste your time on that show. It was a complete waste of time. As someone that loved that show, just save yourself the time.
That just seems so unnecessary.
I know it really does, but from that perspective, yes, I understand how people think some things like this are a waste of time, and in fact, some things like Lost are in fact a waste of your time. But wrestling, very fun. I'm gonna take you to an event. Espo wants to go to an event, so I'm gonna put a GoPro on him like I would on Blaze Alexander while he's playing baseball and see what we get back. But of course, that's a great question, and I had a great time. Honestly, there was the main event delivered on all of my childhood, like growing up watching wrestling moments with the Undertaker and Cena and all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun. Had a great time. And honestly, wrestling's better when you watch it with your friends. So watch wrestling with your friends. Have big events like that. I ate a lot of good food. I'm up like 10 pounds. That's where I'm at. That's a status update on me. But of course, I'm going to try to go run some of this off. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. This maniac next to me is at Jesse N. Friedman. Make sure to drop a like before you leave. We always appreciate it when you do that. Damon Dog, of course, the people's producer is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are Damon's Dogs. Bark, bark. Our show, of course, is at PHNX_DBacks, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Well, we thank you guys so much for your time. We will see you guys tomorrow. We have a post-game show after their first game with the Rockies. Hopefully the vibes.
Or after their second game with the Rockies.
Second game. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm
No post-game.
No post-game tonight. We got a post-game tomorrow after that second game.
I would do it, but Derek refuses. So.
See? Oh my God. And you're mad at me that I'm outing Cogs.
That's a crazy way to end this show.
That's a crazy way to end this show.
Just straight under the bus.
Yeah, just threw me right under the bus with no regard for my personal safety. But we thank you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great night. Go Diamondbacks. And of course, we want you guys to remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's also fun when you watch pro wrestling, Jesse.
No, it's not.
Just watch it.
No, it's not.
We all silly like the mayor.